Have you ever wondered if you're living the right version of your life? What if I told you that your deepest fear about not being real might actually hold the key to understanding your greatest purpose? Let's dive into the terrifying beauty of multiple realities and why your imperfect life matters more than you think. Okay, hi, this is Francisca and this is my Mid-Crisis Life, and today is this week's episode of Crisis Confessionals. Okay, so this week I was going to talk about something completely different, but then something happened over the weekend that I just feel really called to speak about today. So I'm trying to think where to start. Okay, so I think I'll start here. So a few years ago, about 5 years ago, I have a friend who went to Costa Rica and he did some ayahuasca, and he came back saying to me that he had met God and he had a conversation with God. Now, it's important to know that before he went away, he didn't have any affiliation with God or believe in God in any way, shape, or form. He certainly wasn't religious. He was spiritual to some extent, but he would refer to everything as being like the universe. You know, the universe is this, the universe does that. He came back and he said that he met God, and God said to him, the first thing he said to him was like, "Yo, dude, can you stop calling me a planet, please?" Which he found hilarious. Anyway, during this conversation, I can't remember all of it, but one of the things that he said to me that really stood out was he said that God explained, because he asked him, why do all of these atrocities happen in the world? You know, why are people dying? Why are people doing awful things to one another? What's it all about? Why do we need it? So God spoke to him about like balance, the need for balance and whatever else. But the other thing that he said was that the reason why we come here to this particular earth is because we have an opportunity to experience everything. And what we want is we want to experience absolutely every single thing that we can experience. So we want to experience doing good, doing bad, being bad. And he said every single time we go back to heaven, heaven is like a collection of all of these different experiences. And then once we experience absolutely everything that we can possibly experience, we go up into nirvana. And nirvana is like becoming a part of everything, going back to source, going back to the ground, being absolutely everything. And you cannot be everything. You cannot be omnipotent unless you fully understand what everything feels like. So you're no longer sat in judgment for people that do certain things because you in this lifetime have never done it. And he said heaven is kind of like this halfway house where all of these experiences are collected, where all of them are created and come into being so that we can experience the wisdom from that and then move up to the next step. All right. So I definitely think that that's true. That just rang true with me. There was something about it that I was like, yeah, that's definitely true. That definitely holds true with me. So then I had that conversation. And then a couple of years ago, I was looking into this thing called the Law of One. And that kind of reinforced for me this idea of like a soul life, and that we have this kind of like overarching soul life. And then as a soul, we come down here and we experience different things. As different people in different versions of ourselves as our soul, but in a different body. So in this body, I just have to be Francisca, and I've gone through what I've gone through in order to collect the information that I need to collect. And the Law of One also talks about different dimensions, and the fact that in this third dimension, there's a greater level of polarity. So polarity means like you know, like the polar caps. There's north and south, like a battery that's positive and negative, and that we have the opportunity to choose because we have such freedom of choice. We have free will. We have the freedom to choose whether in this life we want to be of service to ourselves or whether we want to be of service to others. And there's a lot more technical stuff that I'm not going to go into right now, but essentially that's what it's saying. And it's saying that we as individuals will, ascend up into the next dimension once we have consistently over many lifetimes made the choice to serve others, to be here in service of others rather in service of ourselves. And it talks about as well that there's like a certain percentage that you have to hit in order for you to have achieved that. I think it's like 50-something% that you need to do it 50-something% of the time. Whereas if you want to be in service to self, you have to be all the way down in like 89% or something in order for your soul to just take that path and to be on the path of service to self. And these are the people that you see that do really massive evil atrocities, right? But ultimately, these dimensions, they all lead back to God, they all lead back to source. So at some point, even if you've gone on a journey of service to self, you're going to get to a point where you can't go any further. So then you have to come back and you have to choose again. And that when we come to this dimension, when we come to this, version of being, that we have the veil of forgetting. And it's really important to forget all of these things that are happening outside of this particular singular experience, because that is the only thing that allows us to choose. And one thing that I do know about the God, the source, the being, the entity that I believe in, is that, you know, there could be a forceful reckoning of like, no, you will believe, and I'm not giving you a choice. But I mean, who really wants anybody to come to them like that, right? God wants us to come through choice, through desire, through faith, right? And I've done a whole video on what I think about soul life and whatever else, and I'll find it and I'll put it up here. So when I talk about God, I think one of the things that's important to remember, or one of the things that I think is important to point out, is that I don't believe in a God in the kind of orthodox sense that there is this like patriarchal guy in the sky that's looking down with judgment and condemnation, or even just looking down with love and abundance and grace, right? Who's weighing up all of the decisions that we make. I think really for me that God is more like there is a source that created everything, because remember, even scientists cannot go back past the Big Bang. They actually have no idea how it happened. And I do believe that everything that we have in this world and everything that we're going to have and everything that we could have all comes from a nothingness, which actually isn't nothing, is absolutely everything. And that's where everything is kind of born from. And it's kind of like pregnant all times with the possibility. Okay, someone's calling me. But yeah, I think it's pregnant with the possibility of all possibilities, right? So I think that God is not something that's separate. And I think that if you look at religion and the way that religion is taught, it's taught for you to believe that you are separate from God, that you need to do something in order to gain acceptance by this thing. And it creates like a separation. And in that separation, that's where we feel pain. That's where we feel lost. That's where we feel lost, like from our creator. I think actually that God is us. And even in the Bible, it talks about us being created in God's image. And I don't think that that means that we look like him. I think that means that we are him or her or it, whatever, right? Because we are able to come here and we're able to choose and we're able to manifest and we're able to create in the same way that God creates, in the same way that the source creates. I think that really actually whatever is the source out there is just something wanting to experience itself. So it had to create something more than itself in order to know that it existed. It had to create evil in order to know that it was good. And it is just an ongoing kind of expression of itself. And I think that that actually really ties in with the idea of us having experiences, and collecting all of those experiences, because all of those experiences are also being collected by the source, by the one, by God, whatever you want to call it, right? And it's just experiencing an expression of itself through multiple different channels that have been created and manifested over like eons of time, right? Okay, so I think it's also really important to talk about the fact that there's a lot of like talk, even like in the mainstream, even in like Marvel movies and all that sort of stuff nowadays, about like multiple realities, yeah? And even in science, we know now that there are multiple versions of the galaxy happening outside of it, right? That's what they're saying. I mean, who knows? But I think it's very likely true that there probably are multiple realities. And there are multiple versions of me all living simultaneously. And I tell you, that scares the fucking shit out of me. Like, that is something that, like, you know, like a phobia is something that is an irrational fear. That is such a phobia for me. Like, it's so scary to believe that there are other versions of me that are not me, right? And I know one of the biggest reasons why I've found this petrifying, why I've had this phobia, this irrational fear of this idea of there being multiple versions of me, is because I'm always left thinking, okay, so if there are multiple versions of me, how do I know which one is real? How do I know if I'm the real one or if I'm just like a sideline, like, I don't know, like side route, like subsidiary of myself? And the idea that like there's real and there's fake and I might be like the fictitious version of me is fucking petrifying. It's horrifying, in fact, because then it means like my entire life isn't real. Everything that I've experienced isn't real. My children aren't real, because what if the real version of me never had kids? What then? Then what? They're just, my kids don't exist. They just exist in this like fictitious reality that's happening simultaneously. And it's just like, it's really, really, really scared me. And it's kind of like that thought of like, okay, which is like the optimum version? Which is like the OG Fran? Because if it's not me, then that's really fucked up. That means that I'm not the one. And that's a really fucking scary thought, right? Especially for someone who deals with massive issues around self-worth and value and validation. It's like, yeah, but maybe you're just not even real anyway, because you're not OG Fran. You're not optimum Fran. Whew. So anyway, I've been reading this book recently that's called Waking Up in 5D. It's a really, really interesting book. And it talks about multiple realities, alternate versions of yourself. It talks about the fact that essentially what it says is that whenever you make a choice, whenever you're faced with a choice, and I guess it could be like as small as like, do I drink a cup of tea this morning or I don't? There's a version of you that did drink the tea, and then there's a version of you that didn't drink the tea. Like, or like, should I have this baby at 19 or 18 or whatever it was, or should I not have this baby? And there's a version of you that did, and there's a version of you that didn't, right? But it talks about like every time you make a choice, that there is like an emotional signature on that choice, right? And I guess the greater the emotional signature, the greater the possibility that an alternate reality can be created. I think that's pretty much what it's saying, right? And it's saying that any time in your life that you look back at a particular choice that you made to get into a relationship, to leave a relationship, to go to a certain college or university, to, I don't know, have babies or not have babies, whatever, right? If you ever look back at those choices with a level of remorse or regret or resentment, or like, I don't know, like just feeling like, I don't really know if I made the right decision there, that what you're doing is you're giving like an emotional feed. You're feeding that other reality with the emotions that you feel about it. But once you resolve within yourself that that's the decision that you made, and you make peace with the decision that you made, then that resolves that alternative reality, right? And again, that kind of scares me, because I just think, okay, so at some point is like OG Fran going to just resolve whatever issue she had with whatever choice it was that was made that like split our realities and created me, and then I'm just going to like melt back into the original Fran, like, and then I just don't exist anymore. Like, that's really fucking scary. So anyway, after reading this book, or reading that part of this book, I started at night asking or setting an intention for all of my other versions of me, all the times that I feel like I'm not sure about the choice that I made, or I wish I'd done something differently, or I wish I hadn't have done that, for all of those versions to come back to me, for us to be all aligned, for us to all be in one, right? And that's what I've been doing for the last couple, I don't know, weeks or so, right? Okay, so anyway, this weekend, I did like a little mushroom ceremony for somebody. And I mean, I can talk for ages about the benefits of mushrooms, the benefits of psilocybin on like neurogenesis, on creating new pathways, on activating your serotonin, because the chemical compound in psilocybin is an exact replica of the chemical compound of your serotonin, and it actually goes into your serotonin, it activates it, rather than like depression, drugs, antidepressants that kind of just switch it on and off like a tap, so you're still kind of all over the place. But anyway, I did a mushroom ceremony. Now, because I was in service of someone else, I didn't take a shitload of mushrooms. I just took a little bit, right? Because actually, if you're in service to someone who's going through that kind of journey, who's using that medicine in a way to support their mental health or whatever it might be, it's important that you are not just stone cold sober because you fuck with the frequency, right? Okay, so I was thinking a little bit about this whole idea. It came to me while I was on the mushrooms, and what it taught me was absolutely fucking amazing, right? So I went from having this fear that I'm not the real version to accepting, to realizing, I had this realization where I was like, well, of course you're not the real version, because the real version is making the optimum decision at every given moment to live the optimum life, right? And you have not made the optimum decision at each point in your life. You know that for a fact. You've made some really fucked up decisions. You've made some really stupid decisions. And you've also avoided a lot of stupid decisions, but definitely you've not been optimum Fran, like 100%. You've not been alpha Fran throughout the course of your life, right? But really what it taught me is it taught me, firstly, to accept this realization. And I cried and I was really upset about that because I just felt like, oh, okay, well then I'm not real. Then I'm not real. That's really what it comes down to. And all of this isn't real and it doesn't fucking matter. And I think that was kind of the question that I had. I was like, okay, well then why does it fucking matter what I do then in that case? If it's not even fucking real, why does it matter? And what it taught me is it taught me to understand that every decision that I make is feeding into the understanding and the wisdom of OG Fran, of Alpha Fran, of Optimum Fran. And that without me, she is unable to make the optimum decisions, because everything that I'm doing creates a signature of experience and a signature of wisdom that helps to inform those optimum decisions. Without that version of me, the OG, the original, the optimum version of me, having to go through the pain and the suffering, right? So I'm going to read you what I wrote to myself, because I don't know, it might explain it a little bit better. All right. Bloody hell. It's a lot. Let's try to get through this. All right. 13th of June, 2025. All my life, I felt like I didn't belong, not just to my family, but to my life. I've always been petrified about the idea of multiple timelines. It scares me not to think that there are many of me, but it scares me to understand then who is the real and who are the irrelevant, because only the one can truly exist. And the rest of us are just a memory, a signal flame, a thought lost in the breeze. We are the cannon fodder. We are not real. We do not exist. And that is the scariest thing of all, for us to be meaningless, for us to be fiction. But I have learned today that fiction and fact are not a binary concept. And the fear I have felt my whole life that I'm not real, that I do not matter, that I'm nothing but a sneeze or a nap on an afternoon breeze is true. That is fact. That is the reality. I am not the one. How could I be when the true one, the realist version of me, is the optimum? Is the wisest, the crone of all versions of me. She did not have kids at 19. She did not lose herself and forsake her children for a man and an abusive relationship. She would never make such suboptimal decisions. What a painful thing to realize I am not real. I do not exist. My children do not exist. My life is not real. That is fucking agony. So what's the point then? Why even bother if I'm nothing more than a thought in the wind? It is important because I create the one. My life feeds into the one. It is one of the lives that creates the whole. The entirety of the existence is dependent on me and what I learn. It is part of the heaven on earth that needs all possibilities, all experiences, all paths, all wisdom. So in essence, I am the one. I create the one. All the versions of me contribute to the whole, just like the source. that we are all an expression of the one source. I am an expression of the one me. She needs me to embrace my experiences, to go through what I need to go through so that I can feed all that wisdom into her. My life is so important, even if it's a branch, because it is the microcosm, the organic structure that creates the reality of the one me. Without me, she cannot exist. And for that, I'm truly the most valuable. I have the most purpose. And I think the reason I want to talk about it is because I want people to understand that even if your decisions feel suboptimal, even if you feel like you're not the optimal one, and even if you have this weird phobia like I do, that maybe you don't matter, that maybe you don't matter. It's so hot in here. Oh my God. I think I want people to understand that there's an importance to your life anyway, even if you're not the real one, that your experiences and your mistakes and all of the decisions that you've made are as valuable and as important. And that your whole life is a collection of experiences, just like heaven on earth, right? Okay, I think that's it. Something that I'm grateful for. I'm really grateful to that wisdom that got downloaded into me. I'm really grateful to myself for being honest about the things that I'm scared about. I'm really grateful to myself for going and reading things that maybe might give me a little bit more understanding. I'm really grateful for myself for asking the question and facing the truth and feeling the pain of that and recognizing the realization that I maybe didn't want to recognize before. And through that, being given answers, being given more wisdom, being given this esoteric message from beyond that is beautiful and allows me to understand that my life has purpose. So, yeah, I think that's it. What's your biggest existential fear? Have you ever felt like you might not be the real version of yourself? I'd love to hear your thoughts on multiple realities and finding purpose in our imperfect choices. Drop your experiences in the comments below and don't forget to like and subscribe if this resonated with you. See you next week for another raw confession.